It is often said that in today's world, data is the new gold. That means data has more value than gold. Because in today's world of information and communication technology, a large amount of data is being generated. Now, this data can be used for the positive purposes. It can also be used for negative purposes. All of you must be aware that in today's era, industries or companies, they are targeting their consumers. So if an industry has the data profile of their consumers, they'll be able to provide better products and they'll be able to target their consumers in a better manner. So this would be a positive use for data. In the same manner, data can be also used for negative purposes. Now suppose a hacker or a fraudster or any criminal, if he gets access to personal data of somebody else, now he can use this data to blackmail that person. He can also use this personal data to cause monetary harm to that particular person. So data can be used both for positive purposes as well as negative purposes. So it is also important that with generation of huge amount of data, data security shall also be given prime importance. I'll give you a news. Few days back, certain hackers, they tried to steal videos and information from a maternity ward in a hospital in Gujarat. Now, all of us must understand that maternity ward is a place where privacy is very important. Now, this hacker tried to steal video information or video from this maternity ward CCTV cameras. They made a Telegram group and they tried to post these videos on the group and they tried to sell these videos for certain sum of money. I'll give you another news. You must have heard about PricewaterhouseCoopers. Now, PricewaterhouseCoopers is a reputed auditing firm. Now, it has raised certain red flags. It has stated the way companies and firms in India are going, so they will require at least heavy investment in data protection, because if they do not go for data protection, if they do not avail adequate security measures, they can suffer a monetary loss of up to $1 million. Now, from all of these, one thing is pretty clear, that in today's world, data can be used for positive purposes as well as negative purposes. So it is very important that data security shall be given prime importance by the state as well as those people who hold and who possesses personal data of other people. So for that purpose, government in 2023, it enacted a law. The name of the law was Personal Data Protection Act 2023. Yes, by the medium of this law, the government tried to ensure that the personal data of people shall be protected, and the organizations or the entities that are possessing the data of other people, they shall ensure the data shall be protected at any cost, and they shall employ adequate security measures. One thing we have to understand, students, today we are using data for nearly everything. If you want to take admission into a university, so obviously you have to supply your personal data. If you want to go to a hospital and just undertake a routine medical checkup, you have to supply your personal data. Even if you're downloading an app from internet, so you have to supply your personal data. You must have seen whenever you try to download a particular app, so they ask you for certain permissions. Now they ask you that they will access your personal contacts, they will access your location, and much more information that is of personal nature. Now the thing here is, whether you are submitting your personal data for the purpose of university examination, whether you are submitting your personal data for the purpose of medical treatment, or whether you are submitting your personal data for the purpose of downloading a particular app, now your personal data that is of prime importance to your privacy, now you are submitting you are surrendering your data to a third person. Now it is important that this data shall be secured. For that purpose, I told you that government has enacted a law that is called as Personal Data Protection Act. Apart from that, the government has also notified certain rules, data protection rules, and in today's class, we will read certain important provisions of Data Protection Act as well as data protection rules, so we can understand what are the rights of the people whose personal data is submitted to data fiduciaries. What are their rights? And in case data breach happens, and in case loss of their data or unauthorized breach of their data happens, what are the rights they can avail, and what are the liabilities of those organizations or entities that are holding the personal data of other people. I told you. So this is just an example of the places where you submit your personal data. For example, government schemes. if any person is taking benefit of any government scheme, so he has to submit his personal data. Suppose you are taking benefit of any government scholarship, so you have to submit your personal data. You have to submit your address, you have to submit your contact number, you have to submit your, in sometimes you also have to submit your details, for example the name of your parents, your address, and all the other things. If you have to take benefit of certain welfare schemes, obviously you require certain ID cards, for example Aadhaar card. Now Aadhaar card is nothing. Aadhaar card contains your information. You must be having an Aadhaar number, and Aadhaar number is just a reference. So by using that reference, anybody can just peep into your personal data, because when you have submitted, or when you given an application for making Aadhaar card, they must have taken your biometrics, they must have taken your iris scan, they must have taken your fingerprints. Now all of this data, this data is being submitted to UIDAI. Now you are a person whose data is submitted to UIDAI. Now you are a data principal. UIDAI is a data fiduciary. Now it is a responsibility of UIDAI to ensure the protection of your personal data, right? Apart from that, you can also submit your data for multiple purposes. For example, you can submit your data for using applications. You can submit your data for the purpose of availing medical treatment. Now, with so much of your personal data, with different entities, it is important that your data shall be protected. So in India, I already told you, India has enacted a law by the name of Personal Data Protection Act, and this year in November, the government also notified data protection rules. Now, what does this law talks about? This law talks about the obligations of data principals and rights of data principals, as well as obligation of data fiduciaries. Now the question is, who is data principal? Who is considered to be data principal? Now data principal generally means a person whose personal information is submitted to somebody else. Now what do we mean by personal information? Generally personal information means that information through which a person can be identified. So suppose I am submitting my personal information to a university for the purpose of taking admission there. Now this information consists of my name, this information consists of my address, this information consists of details regarding my parents, this information contains details regarding my education qualifications, and a lot of some sort of details. Now this is my personal data, because from this data I can be identified by any person. Now when I am submitting this data to the university, I am a data principal, right? Because the personal data belongs to me. And now the university who is possessing my data, it will be considered to be data principal. I'll give you more complex answer, more complex example. Take the example of UIDAI, Unique Identification Authority of India. Now you have submitted your personal data to UIDAI for the purpose of availing Aadhaar services or Aadhaar card, right? Now you are a data principal, and your data will now be processed by UIDAI, right? When the UIDAI is processing your data, that means it is collecting your data, it is recording your data, it is arranging your data and organizing your data. Now you are a data principal and UIDAI is a data fiduciary. So here I've just tried to explain you in simpler words what is the meaning of data principal and data fiduciary. Secondly, now what is personal data breach? Because this law is specifically concerned about data protection and ensuring that personal data shall not be breached to any person or organization that does not have the authority to access data. Now what do we understand by personal data breach? It just means that personal data of someone, it is either disclosed or sold or transferred to any person who does not have the authority. So if I have submitted my personal data to UIDAI, UIDAI only has the authority to use my data, and that too with my consent, right? Any other authority apart from UIDAI does not have the right. If my data is acquired by that third party, or if it is disclosed to that third party, or if it is breached to that third party, now this is nothing but a personal data breach. This is nothing but a personal data breach, right? Because it is compromising my confidentiality and the privacy of my data. Now, what are the rules and regulations that data fiduciaries have to abide by? One thing. Data fiduciary can only take your data either for the purpose you have given your consent or for lawful purpose. For example, if I am submitting my personal data for the purpose of opening a bank account, now I am a data principal, my bank with whom I have a bank account, he is a data fiduciary, right? So I have given my consent that my data can be used for the purpose of opening a bank account. So the bank can only use my personal data for the purpose of opening the bank account and all the relevant transactions. Apart from that, whatever is lawful, right? Whatever is lawful. Secondly, when I am submitting a personal data, it is a duty of the data fiduciary to inform me, to give me a proper information for the purpose for which my data will be processed or used. So suppose I am opening my bank account with my bank. Now this bank account obviously contains my personal details. Now it is the responsibility of my bank to inform me that your personal data will be used for certain purposes. For example, operating a bank account for the purpose of conducting transactions, right? Next, and it is also important that I, being a data principal, I shall give my consent. If I do not give my consent to my bank for using my personal data, the bank cannot use it. And the thing here is my consent shall also be unambiguous. That means all the relevant information shall be given to me. It is not up to for the bank to conceal certain information from me so that I can give my uninformed consent, right? If I am submitting my data to UIDAI has to inform me about all the purposes for which my personal data will be used. That means if I am aware of the purposes for which my data can be used, and after knowing that I give my consent, so this would be considered to be a valid consent. Next, it is the responsibility of data fiduciary to protect my data, right? And if they fail to perform their obligations under the law, obviously there will be consequences for them in the form of heavy penalties. Apart from that, I, being a data principal, I also have a right under the act as well as under the rules that if I want that my personal data shall be erased, I can raise a request with the data fiduciary, right? If I want that my data shall be erased or it shall be corrected or any sort of alteration shall be made, I can raise a request, and as per the DPDP rules, the fiduciary has to respond within a period of 90 days, right? Even to ensure the security of personal data, the government can also restrict or it can also instruct the data fiduciaries that they cannot transfer the data out of India, because sometimes the data is transferred out of India, and because through that data, certain organization in foreign countries, they conduct profiling of people. So to stop that, the government can issue a notification and they can say that personal data, whatever is collected from India, it will stay in India only. It cannot be transferred to any person, any entity outside India. Apart from that, now I also told you the DPDP rules, they are further elaborating or they are further extending the protection that is being provided to a person under the act, right? Now the rule says in case data breach occurs. So suppose UIDAI is having personal data of suppose 100 crore Indians. Now in case data breach happens, the first thing UIDAI will do is it will inform all the people about the breach of information. It will inform all the relevant people that your data has been breached, so that these people can take precautionary measures. One. Secondly, it has to inform the Data Protection Board of India, DPBI. The Data Protection Board of India is a statutory body that has been established under Section 18 of Data Protection Act. Now this body is made for the purpose of regulating the use of data. Now the data fiduciaries, for example UIDAI or a bank who is having my personal data, in case the data breach occurs due to any reason, first thing is my bank will inform me, as well as it will also inform the Data Protection Body of India, so that the DPBI can take adequate precautionary and adequate remedial measures, as well as the measures to mitigate the harm from data breach. And this information shall be given to the Data Protection Board of India within period of 72 hours. Now what are the penalties? I told you data protection has been given utmost priority through this law. Now what are the penalties that can be imposed? Now this act provides certain obligations on the data fiduciaries, because they are the organization which are holding personal data, so they have to abide by certain obligations. What are those obligations? They need to protect the personal data at any cost. For that purpose, they need to ensure that adequate data safety tools, they are employed by them. If they are not able to protect the data, they have to pay heavy penalties. I'll tell you. I already told you about the Data Protection Board of India. So Data Protection Board of India, obviously, it's a statutory body. It has been given powers by the law to investigate any sort of data breach, to see whether obligations under the law have been fulfilled or not, and if it finds that the data fiduciary has committed breach of law, it can impose penalty up to the extent of even 250 crore rupees. 250 crore rupees. So in case a data fiduciary has not employed adequate safety measures, and because of that data breach happens. So suppose they have not employed proper security measures, they have not employed proper technologies to ensure the protection of data. In that case, data fiduciary will be penalized up to an amount of 250 crores. 250 crores. Apart from that, if breach happens, and data fiduciary is not able to communicate this breach to DPBI, in that case also data fiduciary has to pay at least a penalty of up to 200 crores. And in any other case, if the data fiduciary it violates its obligation under the law, it can pay a penalty of 50 crore rupees. And data principal, the person who is submitting his data, there are certain obligations that are imposed on him as well. Now he cannot submit the personal data of somebody else by representing that this is his data. That means he cannot impersonate. If any person who submits personal data of somebody else in his own name, it would be considered to be an obligation or breach of obligation under the law, and person can be penalized for 10,000 rupees. So in today's video, we have tried to understand the DPDP Act, the DPDP rules, and we have tried to understand that how this security framework or how this legislative framework can secure the data protection regime in India. That's all for today. We'll see you in the next class. And if you want that I shall make a video on a particular topic, you can comment the name of the topic in the comment section, and I'll ensure that I try to make a in-depth video conducting analysis of that particular issue. So that's all for today. We'll see you in the next class. Thank you and goodbye.